Hello, my name is Alexis Jones, and I'm going to be answering the questions from the fifth discussion board and using the chapter 5 from the textbook as support for some of my answers. So the prompt is asking us to put ourselves in the shoes of a teacher who typically they've worked with diverse academic abilities and social skills and motivation for learning. But this year they have a different set of students, and she hasn't had as much experience in working with students that receive special education services. She has a student that has a chronic health concern, asthma, a student that has an autism spectrum disorder, a student with a specific learning disability, and 2 students that have ADHD. So and she's having a hard time with trying to come up with how she's gonna be able to allow these students to reach their full potential. So the first question is, how would I design tasks and structure instructions with students to ensure that they all make progress and learn to their full potential? So my answer to this question would be, I think that it's very important to know the student's IEP and be able to use that as a guideline for what it is that was working in the previous year. So once you have that kind of baseline, then I think it's going to be easier to work off of that. And you need to keep in mind that, of course, going that typical approach, especially when you're talking about students that have different learning abilities, using that approach of you're going to give every student you're going to give them all equal access to, different tools and all of that. But when you're talking about students that have special education designations, you need to keep in mind that providing everyone with the same thing is not going to work when it comes to students that need extra supports. So that's where the differentiated instruction comes into play, and that's where some of these accommodations come into play, because you need to meet the students where they're at, and you need to provide them with the necessary tools to help them to get the most out of their learning experience. What can I do to address the specific needs of students with the special education designations? Like I said, really keeping in mind that differentiated instruction when you're sitting down to do your lesson plans, always include that. And I think that that's something that I've learned thus far in college, is that that's very, very important to include. And you need to know your students, and you need to be able to identify their strengths and work off of that to manage some of the things that they may have deficiencies in. So you need to promote their strengths and use their strength to manage some of the limitations that they may have. The last question is, how would I remain confident in my abilities to be effective in this situation? So one thing to keep in mind is, when it comes to what IEP goals, or even going off your lesson plan and being able to measure whether or not they've learned the material, you need to have goals in place that are measurable. So I think that having goals in place that are actually measurable, that will give you an idea of whether or not what you're implementing is going to be effective or not effective, and you need to kind of go back over things and come up with different approaches. So and also that when we're talking about measurable goals, it's not only something that's assessed through a formal assessment or sitting down and doing a test. Like, it's something that's assessed throughout the school day. It's something that's assessed through observation and working with the student. And these are things that you can do to track their progress.